A resolution of sorts over the weekend in what's being called the Royal Rift. We learned that the Duke and Duchess of Sussex will no longer use the Royal Highness titles. They will not receive any public funds for royal duties. We also learned Prince Harry will have to let go of his royal military patronages. Harry and Meghan are also expected to give back more than $3 million in taxpayers' money for renovations at their cottage in England. Of course, this all stems from Harry and Meghan announcing that they'll step back from their royal duties and become financially independent.
So, of course, you want to dig just a little bit deeper and find out what's going on. With us this afternoon, Daniel P.T. Thomas. He is an author from Chincoteague, grew up in Great Britain. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
Just to lay some groundwork very quickly, you have solid ties with England.
With England and various echelons in England, yes.
Your father was a chaplain?
Chaplain to the Queen for 9 years, meaning I grew up amongst that, for good or worse, which was interesting.
So you know a lot of people. A lot of people know you.
Yeah, yep. Mm-hmm.
Okay. Yeah, you have the inside.
The inside scoop.
A little bit of the inside.
A little bit of the inside scoop. Okay, so losing the royal titles, that's kind of a big deal, isn't it?
It is and it isn't.
Okay.
I mean, if you're somebody who is inside, then maybe, as he's put it, you know, he wants out. I mean, he wants to be away from the spotlight a little bit, and especially what he's seen with his wife. I think he feels that, you know, this is a way to get out and a way to have his own life and to have some freedom. I think one thing that's great about this is he's obviously honoring his own self-respect, his self-preservation of family. And the courage to go out and do something like this is phenomenal. I just think that's the amazing part of it, you know, to actually do this.
Because he's rocking the entire empire to do this.
Well, he's rocking the boat, the solid ship.
Why do you think he is?
I think he, as he said many times in various channels of the media, he's always haunted somewhat by what happened to Diana, his mother. And I think that plays, especially having grown up with that, and some of the trauma that still exists probably in his mind about that. And then when Meghan comes into the scene and he sees what's happening to her, what has happened, and the vilification in the press to some degree, I think he feels he just doesn't want to be part of that life.
So what will life look like for Harry and Meghan? I
think they're going to still have a security arrangement because they'll have to, in a sort of more subdued way. I think they're going to have much more of a normal existence, especially for their children. They're going to be to grow upside and enjoy their charities and the things that they really love and love doing. They won't feel so snared by the media, and I think, in a way, what they've done with this is they've changed the game. You know, the media has been so on top of them, especially the tabloids, and I think what this has given them the opportunity to do is to say, we're going to play it our way now. You know, we have more control. We're going to have our own media, we're going to have our own social outlets. We're going to be in charge of what is said to some degree, more so than it was in the UK. So
it doesn't seem like it would be as much for Meghan, but for Harry, it seems like it's going to be a huge culture shock.
Well, he's an outward-going guy. He's very sort of extroverty. I think he's going to be fine in Canada.
But he's been in the palace.
Yeah, he has. But he also has been outside. This is a much more modern monarchy. Yeah. I think they're much more in touch with the public than the old. You know, in the old days, when you dealt with the media, it was always a question of remain calm and don't say anything and don't explain. That was the way. You don't explain, you don't comment. Nowadays, especially with what we see now happening, you know, and with things like the Crown, you have much more of a modern approach. You know, they're more approachable. They're easier to. You see them speaking more frankly about matters that are important to not them, but also the public. And I think Harry's going to he's going to really embrace a lot of this opportunity. He's going to be somebody who speaks out on a lot of issues. He's very forthright in things that he believes in. He's going to have more of a chance to do that now.
Now, and in his statement, you know, he talked about his relationship with the Queen and his grandmother, of course. How is this going to impact future contact between Harry and the Queen and even Archie?
I think Harry and Meghan will uphold the values of the royal family. I mean, if you think about the two things that are important there, it's service and survival. Those are the two elements or the cornerstones of the royal family. So I think he will embody that as he goes forward. I think what's going to be interesting, this is obviously a bit of a tense, cold situation right now, what's going on, because the Queen has had to do what she's had to do, is remove the titles. But I think there'll be a sort of softening to some degree after a year or so when they agree to review the various documents they put in place. And I think things will sort of mellow a bit more. I think I think one thing that is upsetting that I find is this so-called rift between William and Harry. which has been talked about in the Times and other newspapers. I'm not sure that it's totally, from my sources, I'm not sure it's totally true. I think there's certainly a little tension. There's always tensions between brothers. It's natural. But I think some of the press, unfortunately, has managed to embellish that as well, which is a shame.
Yeah, I'm sure William knows where Harry's heart is.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for coming on and talking
Very
about
much.
this. As the story continues to unfold, we might have to have you back.
Oh, well, maybe.